My name's Tom Pevear, and I was in that band.
Hey, Tom.
How's it going?
I'm great, man.
Good.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me.
So, you live in Tulsa?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
How long you been there?
I've been there 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from?
Well, I spent my childhood in Massachusetts, and then I met my wife, who was an Okie, when we were both living in the Denver area.
Okay.
And right after we had kids, I have now 6-year-old twins.
Oh my gosh.
We moved to Tulsa.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you love Tulsa?
I love it. I would never leave. I was a willing participant to move, because growing up in Massachusetts, Oklahoma was like a whole other country,
Yeah.
Because no one in Massachusetts thinks there's anywhere else on earth other than Boston to New York,
Yeah.
And so, but I think I'm the one who's like, I'd never leave. You have to pull me out of there kicking and screaming.
From Tulsa?
Yeah, I love it.
Did you grow up in the city?
I grew up very close. I grew up in this town, Winthrop, which is kind of like East Boston area. It's where the airport in Boston is.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get into this kind of music?
Well,
What kind of music do you play? How about that?
I get asked this a lot. It's funny because I made this joke. We made some stickers that I still have a couple around that was like, I was too bluegrass for country, too blues for something, not good enough to be Chet or Jerry. And I thought it was funny, but people were like, I shouldn't put yourself down like that, But I was like, that's true, But I would consider myself playing mostly traditional. I'm a folk musician, more or less,
Yeah.
who is definitely drawn to intricate guitar work and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of the kind of, I would say the pre-war kind of Piedmont style guys, folks like Reverend Gary Davis, those gospel players, the big chords and all that. And then really in the last couple of years, I've moved into the Merle, Jerry, Chet area. It's funny, my repertoire of songs I play hasn't probably changed that dramatically, but the way I approach them and play them has changed quite a bit.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a great description, but that's the area I'm in,
I was going to, it was sort of, that kind of music to me is known as country blues.
It is.
Is that
Absolutely.
And that seems like an old way of saying it.
It does.
Right?
It's always been funny because when I get put on blues stuff, they're like, well, that's not blues. That's not quite bluesy enough, know? And when I do a lot, I'd say I associate more often with bluegrass stuff.
This leads to the sticker.
Yeah. And so that tends to be when I do festival type stuff, I would say that's the, area that those festivals are more, attuned to, I guess. And they're usually well, that's kind of bluesy. And it's well,
yeah,
you walk all these lines,
Yeah. So how do you get into that?
So I play guitar. I've loved music. I grew up in a household. My dad was, I know we share a huge Dylan infatuation. I grew up with a dad who more or less considered Dylan God, and I got very much in my late teens, early 20s. So right around college aged, I got really into Dylan and Neil Young, the band, and Levon and all that. And one of the big records I got into was Dirt Farmer, that first Levon record. Yeah. And I started to look at where these songs came from. And I was obsessed with the stuff Larry Campbell was playing on that. It was so far over my head at that point. I was strumming open chords in first position, and knew 2 pentatonic scales, but I loved it. And honestly, I didn't really do much about it. I kind of just listened to it for a while, and I was playing open mics, and I was trying to write songs, but I was mostly playing Neil Young and that kind of cover stuff. Mm-hmm. And then in my kind of late 20s, 10 or so years ago, I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. And so I walked into Rob's Boulder Music. We were my wife was in grad school. I walked in Boulder, Colorado, and I was like, I need someone to teach me how to play Mississippi John Hurt, because that's what I'd heard, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I met this guy, Tom Wazinger. I'm still in touch with him. And he was, I started the arduous journey of trying to get my right hand to alternate and play a melody on top. And that first lesson, he goes, have you ever heard of this band, Hot Tuna? And I was like, I thought it sounded silly, to be honest with you. I was like, no, never heard in my life. He's like, you should really listen to it. And so I went and
that's Yorma?
That's Yorma, yeah. Who kind of has become my guiding light in some ways. That I put on that record, it changed it. I was like, oh my gosh, because I was used to like the John Hurt stuff, which I still adore, but it's slightly more simplistic. I mean, I use that word, kind of metaphorically because it's not easy at all to do what he does. But, there were different chord shapes and different sounds I wasn't hearing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do this? And that just set me off into a straight, I think all of us musicians are compulsive in our own ways and get obsessive about certain things. And that's what really did it for me.
What even gets you into guitar in the first place? Was that singer-songwriter stuff?
Yeah. I remember I'm guessing we're probably somewhat similar age, and like,
how old are you?
30. I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 next month.
Okay, I'm 44.
Yeah. I mean, I was part of the Oh Brother Where Art Thou, when that came out. That was definitely my introduction to things.
Cool.
I was very lucky my dad was into, Richard Thompson and John Hyatt and Bob Dylan and stuff I still absolutely adore.
Yeah. Your dad sounds cool as shit.
He is a cool guy. He was a sports writer for a long time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he still writes and worked at a supermarket for a long time, unloading trucks. He's in some ways, he kind of is his own consummate artist, to be honest with you. He's an avid reader and a huge music fan.
Does he play too?
He doesn't. No interest in playing whatsoever.
Interesting.
But he's still very up on music that's happening today, which I feel like is not common when you're in your mid 60s. He's still very interested in what's going on and what we're listening to.
Yeah.
And
does he get into Gilliam Welch?
yeah, I'm guessing he probably does.
Yeah. You?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. Okay.
Very much so. But those songs were what really kind of, there was Norman Blake on that and all those things. And then from there, it was, like the Dylan stuff, like when No Direction Home came out. I think I was probably, I don't know, maybe in late high school, and they had those videos of him playing Man of Constant Sorrow on there. And I was like, well, I could do that.
Right.
And that's what really kind of...
It's approachable.
It was. I was like, oh, I love that bluesy, folky sound, but that doesn't sound as complicated as Richard Thompson,
Yeah. Are you excited about the Dylan movie?
I am. I can't help but see anything that kind of goes on with him. But, I'm always interested in what people's interpretation of that stuff is.
Do you like all of it?
Dylan?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'd say I'm probably more of a new Dylan guy at this point in my life than I am anything else.
Same.
I'm more time out of mind forward at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. And that was like when I first heard about the movie and was like, okay, someone's digging up this story again because No Direction Home is kind of it.
I mean, it ends at, then they did the Rolling Thunder documentary.
Yeah.
It's always hard to know whether what he's telling you is the truth anyway,
Well, that's what's great about him.
Yeah.
And he's done that his whole
Absolutely.
career. That's like when people will be like, oh, well, I can't understand him now.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's been his whole career.
Yeah.
Like
his voice doesn't sound that much different than it did when I first saw him like 15 years ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But it's like, that's been the story on Dylan from the beginning is people can't, or they don't like the voice.
Yeah.
It's like, that's been the story for over 60 years at this point, and people will still ring that bell because that's just the one you do.
And if you go back to like that Dylan stuff in the 60s, I mean, with Mike Bloomfield on guitar, I mean, that was some bluesy stuff. I mean, and that was, I think no matter what you play, I think so much, the blues is an overused, or I can't tell if it's overused or underused. I think it's overused in some styles of what people consider blues that maybe I'm like, well, I don't know how close to the blues that is, but maybe underused in how prevalent it is through like folk, gospel, all these different pieces.
We've gotten like a lot more narrow vision of what that means.
Yeah.
Because what became like the Claptons and Stevie Ray Vaughns,
the Telecaster, the Stratocaster sound. Yeah.
That became that electric blues sound of the kind of 80s.
Yeah.
Is like that's what it's more or less followed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when you go back, I remember it was a revelation to go back and listen to Howlin' Wolf and being man, this sounds like a completely different style of music and way cooler.
Yeah. And like that early B.B. King stuff, it's just, people always be like, well, he only played like in one position on the neck. And I'm like, well, if you could I couldn't make that one position sound like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If it ain't broke.
Oh.
So you writing songs in high school? Is that what you were saying?
I would use that term. Yeah. I was attempting. Yeah, I was trying. Yeah. I was trying, and I really the other thing that all of that music kind of did was I was like, writing songs even to this day. And I always say like, I'm not a songwriter. I write more songs now than I probably give myself credit for. Like when I look at my set, but I really do view myself more as an interpreter of songs, you know? And that is what I love to do, is to find songs and try to get them onto the guitar into a way that works for me, you know? And so that was like what that "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" stuff also did, was that like, oh wow, like Gillian Welch and all them are still playing "Make Me Down a Pallet on the Floor." Like you could take these songs and just keep them going. And there's a reason we love them so much, because they're just timeless melodies.
They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, someone wrote them somewhere along the way. Someone instantly heard it and was like, I can do that, and just did the best they could remember.
Yeah.
And it's pretty far removed from where it started at some point.
Oh, and that's the beauty of it, I think, you know? And just the you could, and even now when I'm trying to, if I find a song that I'm like, oh, I love that melody, I think that would fit with what I'm trying to do. Now we have Spotify, which means, you know, whatever, we're all spoiled. I can go listen to 100 different versions of it, you know, and you kind of can build your arrangement around what everyone else has done, you know?
You go, oh, I like this line, or I like this one.
Yeah, and you kind of find out, like, or even more for like, for like arrangements to spur ideas, you know, to be like, ooh, I've never heard that go there before. That might work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So, like, were you in bands in high school?
I was, I mean, like, high school bands. Nothing that ever, you know, amounts to anything. I played bass in the orchestra, like when I was in middle school, the upright bass.
That's cool.
I played the bass in high school. And then really kind of like when I started college, I kind of put everything down. I still listened to music avidly, but I kind of didn't play anything for a couple of years, other than to, you know, try to lamely impress girls. Mm-hmm. Put Jack Johnson songs, whatever I was doing, you know?
Yeah. And how'd that work for you?
But not great, you know?
Okay. You said try.
That just wasn't the lane I was meant to be in. You know?
Yeah. Now you're out impressing dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guitar nerds and
Yeah.
Mostly guitar nerds.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when do you pick it back up, like, for real?
Like 26, 27 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. When I had, you know, got through school, got through that awkward post-college phase where you're like trying to figure out how to move out of your parents' house and do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I had a job, and I was like, this is what I had the money to go get lessons and really do what I wanted to do.
And that's in Denver?
I was in, we rented, so we lived all over the Denver metro.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that, so you go and you find this teacher, you want to do the Mississippi John Hurt thing, and is that like, I want to do this for a living?
What I'll say is I was instantly taken by it. It was like, I think even if you asked my wife, she would be like, it was like something. I think she was probably like, what is going on? Like, this is not. She wasn't my wife then, but you know, she's like, what has he like gotten into here? Like, I was going to the library and checking out videos on how to do it. I was, you know, on YouTube constantly watching and listening to stuff. I was, you know, I couldn't put it down. You know, I would play for hours. You know, I don't have kids or any responsibilities. And honestly, to learn to get an alternating thumb down, I don't think I could start now and with kids and everything and try and get that, because like the gateway to entry is just very difficult to be able to keep time, or at least was for me. You know?
Yeah. People. I'm a drummer. People will be like, I want to be a musician, and if they're our age, I'm like, you still can,
absolutely,
but you've probably missed your window to like really, really immerse.
Because all I had to do was work and come home and sit there and strum the, you
need time.
It is.
You need a lot of time to mess around with it, and so what's your job when you're?
I was so at the very beginning I was an after school director, and so my wife was actually the kindergarten teacher, and I was the after school director. That's how I met her at the school. Okay. And then I ran summer camps for kids in the Denver area for 10 years, and up to the pandemic. And then 2 years after the pandemic, and then kind of eased my way into full-time music.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Like kids?
I do, very much, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so, this sort of, does that, at some point you're getting good at this, you're working on it, and you start like booking more gigs? Is this, how does that evolve?
So basically, I started, it took me for 2 years, I kind of went, it was like, I just tried to get my thumb down, and I was like, I need to get a handful of songs together. And I still remember like getting Candyman, which I still play to this day, like down, and being like, I can play this song, I can sing the song. and it doesn't sound like garbage, like there's a tempo, there's a groove. And I just started going to I went to open mics 4 nights a week. I would go out and play nonstop. And then from there, you kind of start picking up gigs, and I still had a full-time job, and then I had kids. And so, I was gigging. I'd kind of go through stretches where I'd book like a couple weekends in a row, and then I wouldn't gig for like a month or two, and I'd kind of go through that cycle a little bit. This is right around my like 30th birthday or so, my late 20s, early 30s.
Start making records?
I didn't make a record until 2 years ago, and I just finished a second one actually this week. So
okay.
I'm putting that out probably this fall.
And is it you playing solo? What's the deal?
So it's me solo. The first one, I went up and recorded in Minneapolis with a good friend of mine, Mark Stockert.
Okay.
Who I'd met, kind of going back. So I did all that, and then the next kind of like game changer was I found out that Yorma had a guitar camp, and I went out to Ohio to go to this guitar camp, and that was another one of those just like this kind of changed everything, like it. He was my hero, still one of my heroes, and just to see like I didn't know there was anyone else that did it, to be honest with you, like there was no one else around me that was finger picking,
Yeah.
So it was that, and then the next big thing was like when the pandemic happened, I lost my job, and so at that point I had 1-year-old twins, and I just stayed home, and it was kind of like before I had kids and was married again, like when they would nap for a few hours a day, I would just play guitar nonstop. And coming out of that, I was like, maybe I'm catching on to something here. Like I'm all right, maybe I could play more at that point. I was like, I'd like to play more,
So this is still relatively recent.
Yeah, this is like 2020. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah, 5-ish years ago.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And then we moved to Tulsa, and I still, I was still playing. I'd go to open mics, all that kind of stuff. And then I was in a position where I had to kind of leave my job. I had been there a long time. My kids were growing up. I wanted to be around more for them, which I mostly am, even though I'm on the road a lot. And the only other thing I knew how to do was play guitar.
Yeah.
So I had 2 months. I had 2 months of gigs booked, and I was like, I have 2 months to figure out what I'm going to do. I had enough gigs to kind of float 2 months. And I kind of got into it. That was, I guess we're talking 2020. Yeah, just over a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, August of 2023. And I still remember, like, I came down here, I opened for Matt Tedder at Magnolia. And I was kind of like, I'm going to try to see how long I can do this for. And I made it through that winter, which is always the not fun season for a musician, as you know. And then I got to this, I was like, if I can get myself to March, I think I can do it. And I did, and the summer was great. And
okay,
I hope I can do it for a long time.
Yeah. You like the solitary being on the road?
I do.
Life?
I do. It's either in you or it's not, because it's not always fun being out on the road.
Right. It's work.
But I do love it. There is something about it that once I did it, I was like, ooh, this is all I ever really want to do,
And your wife gets it?
She does. I've never worked a normal job in some ways. Like I've never really worked a 9 to 5. Like I was the summer camp director where like I was year-round salary, but I didn't really do much, for a few months, a year. And then I would work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for like 12 weeks, and then kind of repeat that cycle. So I've always worked odd intervals and hours. I think it would have been different if I went from being 9 to 5 days a week, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm gone all the time.
Right.
But she was used to parts of the year where I was gone quite a bit.
And so now you guys just kind of have a schedule of like the beginning of the week, you're going to be home and taking care of business at home. And then is it kind of every Thursday or something you take off?
I try to go out 2 weekends a month. That's kind of my goal. I will say during the summer it's more because like, when things are happening, you got to go where they are. You got to go where the gigs are,
And she's off work at that time. She's still a teacher.
She's a administrator, so she is working. Okay. But then, once the kids hit school age was also the other piece that I was like, okay, I can, I have a little more flexibility here.
Right.
So yeah, Wednesday, like I'm here on a Wednesday, which is early for me. Usually I come in on a Thursday. I'd do like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday somewhere. But yeah, I try to go out 2 weekends a month.
That's great.
Yeah. And I do love it.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, tell me about this record then.
Yeah, so I just finished up. I recorded it with a good buddy of mine, Matt Teagarden, in Tulsa. He's a drummer in Tulsa.
Recognize the name.
Yeah, he plays with Seth Lee Jones. His dad is David Teagarden, who was like in the Silver Bullet band, played with Bob Seger, and he has a big studio in Tulsa. But we recorded this just in Matt's living room, and I really wanted to do something I wanted something where I could. When I did the one in Minneapolis, I went up there for like 3 days, and it was like, all right, we're gonna hammer it out, and just whatever we get, we get.
That's solo recordings too?
That was solo recordings too, yeah. And then, so this one I was like, well, we've kind of been poking away at it since like May. And I'm not very comfortable in recording in a studio. I'm much more comfortable playing live than I am being in a studio. Mm-hmm. And so it took me a little bit to get the takes I want. But I actually got on the drive here, I was listening to the final bounces. And it's 8 traditional songs and 3 originals, 2 with lyrics, 1 instrumental. It's an original as well. And it's just, for me, it's all about like trying to capture like where I'm at as a guitar player right now, because I'm not where I was 2+ years ago. I recorded the other one, and I hope in 2 more years, I'm somewhere else.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. We've all been in that situation. Yeah. You have a certain amount of time. You're gonna just go, I'm gonna hammer this out. I'm a performer after all, right? And so you go through and go, I can do this in a few days. And that was just getting the performances, or was that mixing in?
That was just getting the performances. Okay. Yeah.
And then you come away with something and go, well, that worked, but I might want to work a little bit longer in this situation.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I would have gone, I loved that experience too, but this time I was like, I was like, I'm just solo. I wanted to do this one solo acoustic as well. Because in some ways, we're making records in some ways to go get gigs, and I wish, I have no, crazy ideas about how many people might listen to like how many people might sit down and listen to this whole record. It's probably not that many, if I'm being honest. And so I wanted the opportunity to be able to do a lot of takes of things if I wanted to. And listen back to them over time, because I think that was one of the hardest things is when you're doing it in that like kind of condensed time frame. For me, I can't listen back to what I just did that day, that week, and like it's funny. I was listening back to stuff today that we did in like August that originally I was like, nah, that's terrible. Get rid of it. And I was like, oh, actually, that's pretty. I think we'll keep one of these, And I need that space to just listen back to stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's for everyone, but that's just how my mind.
No, works. I relate to that. So like. Brian here is like we started playing music together in a band in junior high and high school, and we did a couple of studio things. Same deal. Okay, well we'll go and we'll spend a weekend doing something, or we'll spend a couple of weekends doing something, and there's always that pressure, especially in a band, where you're like everyone's
coordinating a lot of people and that kind of thing.
Yes, and everyone's relying on each other to work quickly, and no matter how many times you've gone through these songs, you're there with this different pressure, this different environment. It's different than playing them live or in band practice, and that's when we decide, oh, we're going to get our own gear and we're going to learn how to make records, and we go through that kind of a similar process of figuring stuff out, trying hard to get these songs together, recording them, get them almost to be like we're at a finishing point, and then go, all right, from what we've learned from song 1 to song 10, I think we should re-record this whole thing and start over again. And that's what we do. And you sort of end up in this, you can end up in an endless loop.
Yeah.
Of going, well, it's never going to be good enough. No. You're never going to be fully pleased with it, but it is your art, and you have to go. At some point, I have to put a marker here.
We did that this week, where I was like, last week I was like, we're doing 2 more days, and then I have to make decisions because you just got to, and then never. Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, and I think especially for me, like I was doing it all live, like singing and playing live. There's gonna be pick noise. I'm gonna miss note. Like, it's just the reality. Like,
but you love those things on those old records, right?
Oh yeah.
Like when you hear
those people, it doesn't bother me when them do it. When they do it, when I do it,
it sucks. It sucks all of a sudden. Yeah, but when you hear those little noises, there's something on, like, one of those early like Tangled Up in Blue things on like the bootleg series, right? It's like, is he playing? It sounds like he's playing slide with like a butter knife or something, and all you're hearing is this like, is the guitar like hitting his buttons on his shirt, or is it like, or is he running the slide across the frets? Like you just keep hearing these noises, and like I remember the first time I hear it being like, what the hell is that? And then now when I listen to that version, I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's got those weird little noises in it, and you know, it's got that feeling.
Yeah.
It sounds new and fresh, and it's awesome. We're like the dog barking in the, every grain of sand or something.
We have some dog
like
noises on this record, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we have a shaking collar, I think, on this one.
Yeah. That's when you know you got the take.
Yeah, I hope so.
When the dog is shaking in the middle of it. Okay, so how do you decide with your friend, like we're gonna do this like in his living room instead of a studio? Or
well, I think kind of to what what you said, which is that like the accessibility of affordable recording equipment that sounds really, really good is awesome, and he had a couple really nice mics and Logic. I had no interest in learning that stuff. I'm very interested in the mics and that stuff, but like doing the like computer, like technical side, I was like, I'm happy to pay some, like, I'm a person who tries to learn stuff myself. Like being a musician, you got to get pretty resourceful, like there's not money to just do what you want all the time, but I was like, I'm happy to pay someone to engineer all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he did that, and I got like first mixes back today, like where they still need some fine tuning, but he did a fantastic job. And then I have I'm going to sit with him for a little bit, and there's a chance I'll go back. There's a couple I have in mind that I might maybe take another shot at, or I might just live with what I have, because that might be how it has to be too.
Yeah. But you're excited about it? Like
I am. Today was the first day I was excited about listening to it. I hadn't touched them in a while, and I was like, I put them on, and I try to, you have to try to listen to it like a normal person listens to stuff, And I think everyone has to have that person in their life that you put it on for, and you're like, just go about your day. I'm just going to put it on, and like, you kind of see what they take of it, because we'll listen to it. So, no one's going to listen to it in headphones turned up as loud as I have it, listening for a string buzz, or like listening for one dissonant note that doesn't fit, but the groove is still there, And so I went through it today, and I was like, my next step will be to put it on for my wife and some other people to be like, how's this feel, Does
your wife like your music?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. She's honestly the perfect person to play music for, because she likes music in a completely casual way. Mm-hmm. She likes it in the way most people listen to it, like as background noise in the car and that kind of thing,
Is like, are you the world's biggest nerd to her? Like,
on guitar stuff, absolutely, yeah. Completely.
And like this kind of music, is she like, he's weird, he's into this thing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've taken her to see Yorma. She's met maybe she hasn't met Yorma, but I've taken her I've stayed in touch with Yorma over the years, and she and I can't get enough of it, and he's got a whole crew of nerds that have followed him around for years for what he does. She was like, wow.
Yeah, there's others. Yeah. Look at you and your little friends.
Yeah.
What's a beautiful thing.
It is.
But you are a nerd, right? Like you talk about the
absolutely
going to the library and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, like read books about these people and that kind of stuff.
Constantly, yeah. Constantly. I think, yeah, and I love record stores. I don't even listen to that much vinyl anymore, but I will still go in any record store and dig through them forever. It's like, part of the problem is I've collected so much vinyl over the years that I'm like, I gotta go back and listen to it, but sadly in our accessible world, you can just put it on. Half the time I end up listening to it on my phone, which...
Yeah.
But I will go to record stores and dig through every dollar bin I can find,
Yeah. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I love it.
I got a huge collection that I have not listened to.
Yeah.
Probably an embarrassing percentage of.
Absolutely.
I have not listened to. And then, but it's all about accessibility, and if I want to listen to that thing when I'm in my car, then I'll throw it on. But I still like the idea of I'm at home, I'm sitting in my chair, I'm in this space where I like to listen to music and I like putting the record on and, looking at the jacket.
And you got to get yourself out of the seat if you want to change the song, which means you don't change songs, which means you listen to the music in the way it was supposed to be chronologically listened to.
Yeah. And go, this track may not have been my favorite, but when you sit and listen to it, you make yourself listen to it, sitting in that spot, things will grow on you in a different way.
Oh, absolutely.
Than if you have that skip option.
I actually think that's a big thing with music. I think of, I'm sure it was similar for you. Like if you bought a CD for $18 or whatever we paid for them, and you learn to kind of like it, and I do think there's a lot of Dylan I wouldn't love as much as I do if I'd been able to just digitally skip over it,
Yeah.
Or I think of, the album I was thinking of the other day, I was talking to someone about this, is like, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. I had it on cassette, like 3 cassettes or something when I was a kid. There's no way. But I listened to it all the time, and I learned to even like the songs that maybe I didn't like because it just had to be absorbed. Some of that stuff's not designed to be absorbed in the way that we listen to music, which is like 45 seconds, does it catch me?
Yeah. You're not going to pull up that song and seek that one out. But yeah, when you have that longer listening experience and you're like, well, we have a little run here of songs that are not my favorite, but we're going to get to this one that I really like. And then gradually you're like, oh, that one in the middle of that run that one's really cool.
Absolutely.
And I agree. There's something kind of magical about that. And that's a cool thing about records. You start with your 3 favorites and then the songs before and after those kind of become favorites. Like, things get like magnetized as you run over them more and more.
I mean, I think of like my dad's a huge jazz fan, and growing up, I always found it like I wanted to listen to what I wanted to listen to, and but I've heard it so much. I'm a huge cult. I love jazz now. I listen to jazz all day, and there's no way I would do that like if I could have skipped over stuff, and at least for me, like that's stuff that needs to be absorbed over time, like to really get,
Oh yeah. And it kind of continues to open up, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Like there's still things you didn't notice, or
100%.
And as your like musical brain grows, you hear things and go, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that, and then listening to music on your iPhone, it's like. It's not like I'm one of these total audiophile. Like I do think there is a level to which like I can't tell the difference between how good it is, but the way people just listen to music like through their, just using the speaker on their iPhone, I'm like, that's just you can't really enjoy music that way,
right?
Yeah,
and that's weird because I still end up in certain times listening to things that way.
Oh, me too.
Just in a random immediacy thing.
Absolutely.
Someone sends you something. A mix or something like that, I won't even think about it before. I'm like, well, I just need to hear a second of it. And so you sit there and listen to it stuck up to your ear and go like, what am I doing? Why would I give this person mix notes based on this?
Yeah. And I think that's one thing with like also with recording sometimes I'm like, that might be how a lot of people listen to this recording I made.
Exactly. Yeah. And some people just listen to music like that.
Yeah.
Or, through shitty computer speakers or whatever, and that's so you kind of have to do it for yourself.
You do.
And hope that somewhere there's some other nerd ready to transmit this information to.
And I think that goes for in some ways like being a musician in general. Like there has to be a very deep, if you're doing it, I mean, obviously sharing music is for other people and all that, like getting up there and performing and sharing it can be for other people, but if you're not doing it for you, it's a tough road to be on. Road to be on, And I think, even if something happened and I had to go do something else tomorrow, I couldn't do this full time. I'd still be sitting around playing guitar every day and figuring out Jerry Reed licks.
Yeah. Is that like Jerry, Chet? You said Merle Travis.
Yeah.
Too.
That's been kind of what I've been much more into here more recently, I mean, Chet's way over my head, I'm going to be honest with you, just from even a technique standpoint. It's so masterful.
And so long ago.
It's so perfect, it's almost hard to comprehend that a human plays with that much touch and tone and executes things that cleanly,
Yeah.
And I've always been drawn a little more to Jerry and Merle because they sang. and I've always wanted to sing song. You know, I've always wanted to sing too. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could listen to that stuff all day. Lenny Bro, I can't get enough of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who else?
I mean, I still Yorma releases live recordings all the time on Spotify and all that. I still will listen to those nonstop. I mean, the guitar records I've listened to the most recently has been this record by the Chris Combs Trio. And Chris Combs is a Tulsa guitar player, kind of a jazzy guy, and he's outstanding. He actually, Hank Early's on one of those tracks.
Oh yeah,
who I know you know, and
I love him.
Yeah, just that's probably been one of my biggest guitar records recently. But yeah, I love Jerry, I love Chet, I love Merle, I love Lenny Bro. I love this guy Frank Fotusky, who is he's actually kind of like a regional guy in the Northeast, but in my opinion, of like in the vein of like what I'm trying to do, he's like one of the very best doing it. And I don't think he's ever had all that much notoriety, but I've got to know him online a little bit, and he's kind of tied in with some of the other folks that do things, but I listen to his records a lot.
Cool.
But I like everything. I have a pretty wide.
Did you meet those, like when you go to that Yorma's camp, how many other people are there?
Well, I went a couple times. So there were pre-pandemic when I went, there were probably like 30 or so people there. I was usually the youngest person there by 25, there was mostly like my parents' age, folks, But the thing that was incredible about it was like, there was this kind of this divide between like Yorma was always like, this is not a fantasy camp. Like we're here to learn, we're here to learn. And, one time when I went, the other teacher was Chris Smither, who I don't know if you listen to Chris Smither, but just one of my favorite.
I don't know him.
Songwriters and guitar players.
Cool.
And then
did you know him before?
Yeah, okay. I knew who he was. Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote "Love Me Like a Man" that Bonnie Raitt kind of had a hit with.
Okay.
Like, he's written a bunch of songs. Yeah. He's great, like Mississippi John Hurt style player, outstanding guitar player.
Okay. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of me and Jacob connected over. Him and Richard Thompson. Those were the first two songwriters we were both like, oh, we love these guys. Okay. And then so he was, and then the other two times I went, Larry Campbell was the other teacher. So I took Larry Campbell's class the other two times. So I took Yorma, I think I went 3 times. I took Yorma once and Larry Campbell the other 2 times. And one time I went during 2020, they only hosted like 2 or 3 camps. And I was like, I'm going, whatever. It was October of 2020. And, like the whole world was kind of shutting down again. I feel like we'd opened up for the summer a bit and like everything was kind of shutting down again. And only like 6 of us showed up. So it was me, Yorma, Larry Campbell, and like 6 people. And so it was, and the cool thing was like, if you were there to learn and you wanted to know, the graciousness of their time was incredible.
So I've seen Larry a bunch, because of all the times I've seen Dylan.
Yep.
And then I only saw Levon one time, but I've really only become to like really appreciate Larry through, Dylan, going back and listening to Dylan recording. Yeah. So I have this weird relationship with him where like I saw him a bunch, but I wasn't that Dylan thing. I saw one with Brian when they did the Paul Simon Dylan thing, and it was like right on Time Out of Mind. They're all in their gray Western suits and looking just so badass and sounding so cool. And I remember being like, this is like a little more country, bluesy, rockabilly.
Was Charlie Sexton in the band at that time too?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'd have to look specifically at what it was, but like it was that era.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even know if it, I might have seen Charlie and Bucky. Not Charlie, Larry and Bucky at one time, and then Larry and Charlie.
And then it was Stu.
That's Stu Kimball.
Yeah.
That might have been earlier.
Was that earlier? Okay.
And then like 2004, like I saw this great Bob show at Bonnaroo.
It's funny. We were listening to that. That show is like, to me, one of the greatest live. Oh. That was the first tour I saw him. I think Larry was playing guitar, but I don't remember. Charlie wasn't in the band when I saw them, at least.
Okay.
But yeah, that Bonnaroo show is like
one of
the best live performances ever.
Yeah. And I've seen, it's funny because, like I think when we saw them in like 99, I think that was when we saw Paul Simon. But at any rate, it's like Larry's on lead guitar, there's someone else doing utility. And then like the next time, Larry's more utility and there's someone else on kind of more lead. And so it's, I'm the whole time I'm like, there's that guy. Well, what the fuck's he doing over here?
Yeah,
like,
right,
you know,
right.
like, why are we doing, you know, like, is he playing fiddle and, you know, doing all this different stuff?
It's like everything. He can play everything. Like, and masterful. Let's just.
And then the time I saw Levon was at Kane's in Tulsa.
No kidding.
And he had lost his voice.
It's funny.
He came from Denver.
It's funny. I saw that Red Rock show. They opened for John Prine.
Okay.
Like 2 nights before, I was at that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's wild.
They like co-headlined with John Prine that night, and it was. They were out. It was actually all the videos are on. This is like where the nerdy side comes in. I actually YouTubed that not that long ago because like I was like, I wonder if someone took videos of that. And they did, and I was like,
I need to go watch that.
Yeah.
Because did you ever watch that movie? Leave on Helm, I Ain't In It For My Health.
Yes, and they talk about it in that too. I think, don't they? Yeah.
I kind of hated that movie. For what like I felt I didn't like the filmmaker.
Sure.
I think I just didn't like the interviews were weird, and there was something about it.
They made Levon seem grumpier, I feel like, than maybe he really was.
Well, maybe he was a grumpy bastard or something, but like there was something about the nature of a few of the questions and and then like I feel like the footage that he used of even the band stuff wasn't the best stuff. It was like it seemed like he had limited resources. Like someone needs to do a better Levon Helm documentary in my mind than what's been done. And maybe it will happen, maybe it won't, but I'm just a huge fan and he's a hero.
Absolutely. Me too. I mean, I've taken my kids to his grave, you know, and like it's that kind of thing for me, you know, like it's a seminal voice, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Changed my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
For real. And so getting to see him that one time, and then Larry and Teresa at Kane's, they really stepped up.
Oh, yeah.
And Amy, his daughter, was, and there was a great keyboard player, and like it was really cool because
I think that tour had when I saw him at Red Rocks that time, he had the guy who played in the later iterations of the band on the Telecaster, was an outstanding guitar player, Jim.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Oh, he's a monster. I just remember him and Larry going back and forth on Chest Fever, and it was like, dear Lord.
Yeah.
I was like, only John Prine could follow this. Like anyone else would be like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm not following this.
Yeah. Yeah, or would be like, you guys have to headline now from now on.
It was the same ones. I saw Los Lobos at Red Rocks open for Tedeschi Trucks Band, and I was like, Tedeschi Trucks was the only band that could have Los Lobos open for them, you know, because they just smoked, you know, just out of control, incredible.
I saw Los Lobos open for Neil Young in Tulsa.
Oh, wow.
And that was Neil Young and Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
Same thing.
That's the thing. Like, you need a band like that can follow Los Lobos because they're one of the best live bands ever.
Yeah, and it's kind of doing the same thing but completely different approaches.
Yep.
Of like, everyone's playing their, you know, their minds, just everyone's just going crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At all times, but in very different ways. So the Levon thing really said something to me because he starts singing. They're going to do Rag Mama Rag, one of my absolute favorite songs. He starts singing. It's not happening. And he smiles real big and kind of looks over. He's like, you know, from stage left and kind of looks across the stage at Larry and Teresa and Amy. And he just kind of gives this smile like,
it's not there,
Yeah, and they all pick it up.
Yeah.
And they went on and did a great show. He still tried to sing a few things. I mean, his voice is just gone.
Yeah.
But he did not have this ho-hum feeling. It was just like, well, it ain't working tonight. And they all stepped up. Everybody, I think they probably altered the set list considerably and just started doing different stuff, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, it was great. And I was so impressed with... I was obviously there to see Levon and hear him sing.
Sure.
But the band really, really pulled him up.
He's such a good drummer, too.
Yeah. And I got to see him play drums.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And I'd never really seen a show at Kane's.
Oh, Kane's is great, yeah.
And it was great. Like, the whole experience was just wonderful. And it was like, that was a minor setback that, you know, one of my favorite voices ever didn't show up. But
he really was like he had that spirit. Some people have it, you know, and like, Because I saw him, the last time I saw him, he didn't sing. His voice was gone. It was towards the end of, I think it was probably in the fall, and I think he died in the spring of 2012. It was probably 2011 I saw him. And he had no, I think he tried to sing like one verse in the wait. I think that was kind of all he kind of sang the whole time. And but he still, he sat on the side of the stage there, and he'd get those, he'd smile and he'd look out at you. They still did Deep Ellum Blues, and he got up and did his thing with like the mandolin, his little dance thing. And it was just great to be in the presence of that.
And he didn't quit.
No.
Like, you're just like, okay.
Yep.
That, it's like analogous to like a dancer who lost a leg or something. He's like, well, I'm still going to get up there and do it, and people will still come. It's still a joyful thing. It's a beautiful thing. That there's something to that.
Oh,
and when I've seen certain performers when they kind of muscle through something, you just go, yeah, that's cool. My respect level goes up.
Yeah, we've all had those nights where it's like, it's not there.
Yeah,
for whatever myriad of reasons, and sometimes you don't even know why. And I do think there's something to be earned by just being like, just get down to business and make it happen. Sometimes
it feels like it's not there, and then like I know with recording, do you ever record your live stuff?
Constantly. Yeah.
So like sometimes you'll go. I feel like I'd go through a show and be like, this one was unremarkable, and you go back to listen to it, and it's like, this actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And then other times you'll feel like, that was nails, and you go back and listen, it's like uninteresting.
Yeah. Like
almost sometimes you're comfortable and everything goes right, and that's not fun to listen to.
Sure.
And other times you're struggling the whole time, and that sounds cooler.
And I think that's what that is the interesting thing. I've had this thing recently where it's like, you can know all the notes, and like there are songs where I'm like, well, I'm playing all the notes, but that is what separates out. Feel is at the end of the day what people resonate with music.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play all these fancy licks and show them what I got out there. They don't. That's not really what people care. That's what I care about, and a couple other guitar nerds.
Yeah.
And I do think that is something that I try really hard to keep in mind. That like, it's about feel. And like sometimes when you're going for all that stuff that may be pushing what you can do, you're losing some of that feel, and that may not resonate as much as you think it does.
Absolutely. Talk to me about Tulsa.
Oh, wow,
How? Why did you move there?
We moved there. Well, so we went to Tulsa shortly after I met my wife. We'd gone to Oklahoma for a whole wide variety of things, and I'll be honest, I just always really liked Tulsa. And so, like, by the time we moved there, I'd probably been there, I don't know, maybe 10 times over the years. For different things.
Your wife's an Okie, you said?
She is. She's from Norman, born and raised in Norman. Yeah.
Norman's a great town, too.
Norman's a great town, too. We looked in Norman. We looked in Oklahoma City. But Tulsa is, in my opinion, the much prettier side of the state. It's the green, hilly side. And I've always been very into the music, the Tulsa music sound, that we all love. And so when we started looking at places, we were kind of like, none of us had I had no real affinity for Denver. It wasn't my, like, I didn't ski. I didn't do some of the things that like maybe would make it a more appealing place to live, And so when we were kind of like, let's make a change, we went to Norman, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa, and we were like, we kind of wanted to go where one of us at least had some connection to, and we picked Tulsa.
What's it like? I imagine when you're going around Denver and you're doing the open mics and stuff, you start to like establish a network.
Yeah.
What's it like to move to a new town, sort of an established music town, and try to like integrate yourself into that?
I mean, Tulsa has been so gracious to me in ways that, Denver wasn't, but probably not because of there. It's a whole myriad of reasons, I think when I got to Tulsa, I was a much more refined player. I think I had what I wanted to do much more together. I'd done a lot of work. Denver maybe had been where I'd cut my teeth in a lot of ways, but when I got to Tulsa, I had a much better idea of like what I wanted to do. And the people there are, the people make the place. And I will say that very much. I love Okies. I love the people of Tulsa. And, for me, like when I got there, the first gig I ever had, I started busking on First Fridays. I just went down and asked the guy at the Woody Guthrie Center if I could sit outside and busk, because I was like, I knew I had to play live. And Tulsa is, I'd be happy to be the 500th best guitar player in Tulsa. Like the level of talent there is is out of control, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes there'll be, you know, I think I've been there for a long time and I kind of know everyone. And then all of a sudden you'll be at like some gig and someone will be like, oh, we're going to have so-and-so sit in. And they get up there and you're like, where do they find this guy?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like one after another. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to play, I have to go. I just got to do it. And I had busked before, you know, and like it was something I was kind of like, and that's kind of how this music should be played in some ways, in my opinion. The stuff I play, like, it's for the people. You got to get out there and do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I am a big believer of like, if there's not a gig to play, you got to just make one. You got to get going. Like, you got to do something, you know?
Yeah.
So I started doing that. And then from there, I got asked to do a gig at this place, the Hunt Club, and Sound Pony, which are definitely kind of two places. I still do them from time to time, but are places that are really open to giving people their first shot in Tulsa, you know?
Yeah.
And then from there, I just kind of kept cranking, you know? And I waited over a year of living there before I really kind of let anyone know that I played guitar or anything like that. It was really important to me because I was going to live there no matter what. Like, that was where I was raising my kids, where my family was going to be. And I didn't want, and still wouldn't want, anyone to think I was just trying to come in, and I wanted to be friends. I was happy to be friends first. You know? Like, I was very happy, and I love watching music. I will watch music all day, and I don't need to play. I will sit and, you know, so a lot of the folks I'd met, and I think it was kind of like, oh, he plays guitar, huh? You know, because I'd hung around, you know, and watched music. But that was really like important to me, that I didn't want anyone to feel like I wanted something from them. I just wanted to be friends, and that is kind of how I still feel in Tulsa. You know,
Cool.
That is the first piece that was most important to me. And then I just was very lucky. One thing I'll tell you about Tulsa that is different than other places I've played is, like, if you're a musician, you show up at a gig, you better be ready to play. Whether you're watching or not, someone's going to hand you an instrument. You know?
Really?
It's very much like that. And I've handed that on. I have a residency in Tulsa now at the Colony, and I'm very lucky to have, and I try to pass that forward. And what I found out is really goes back to Tom Skinner and those guys, where they would, if you were around, he was going to ask you to get up and play, you know? And so I was very fortunate to get up. You know, I'd go to things and be like, why don't you get up and play one? And you just kind of keep doing that. And I always tell people that move to Tulsa, like, well, how do I get going? I'm like, you just got to just go wherever the music is and hang out. And at some point, someone's going to say, like, hey, you want to play one?
Yeah.
And just be ready to play one. And, you know, for a long time, I was everyone's fourth call, then third call, then second call, you know, and like, you just hang around and you just stay consistent and keep getting better, and take the opportunity when it comes. And that's kind of what I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any other way to do, you know, like, you know, for me anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like, just coming from where I came from, which was like Dallas and then Denton. I moved to Denton when I was 18 to go to college, and there was a bit of I don't know if I'd call it like competitiveness.
Sure.
You know, or people are, it seems like they're a little bit less willing to give you their stage time.
Sure.
Because Denton's a small town.
Yeah.
With a lot of musicians, and I think there's a bit of like, hey, you better be good because there is someone right behind you who will take this gig from you, take less money, you know, and kick your ass, you know, like totally mop the floor with your ass on in the meantime. So it's like, be good, be on time.
Yep.
You know, bring some people out.
Yeah.
Kick ass, like the whole thing. And so, like, what you're saying to me sounds a little more like Fort Worth is to me, Fort Worth has been so much more welcoming.
Tulsa is very welcoming, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if you go in there with good intentions and you know, it changed my whole approach, because Denver was like closer to what you're describing. And Denver was also a much more transitionary space. Like, people, you know, Denver's a city people move away from. So there are people coming and going all the time. Tulsa's music scene, those guys have known each other for 20, 30 years. And so, like, to be presumptuous enough that I was going to go in and like they've earned those gigs, and that's who should be playing. And they're incredible. And I still stand in awe of them as musicians, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that there's definitely a willingness for them to help other people out that is unique.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you, as a musician, you move there and people are like, yeah, come on in.
There is definitely some of that. Yep.
Yeah. How do you feel about Fort Worth?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'll say is, like, you know, the areas that I I kind of cover the I-35 corridor, you know, but I would say the place I come the most to are Fort Worth, and then I do a bunch of stuff down in Hico. I've made some good friends down there, and so I play down there quite a bit, which has been. I feel like every musician has like a couple of like, you know, for lack of a better term, like guardian angels. Like when you're just like, oh man, this can't get like any more frustrating or difficult. You have those couple people who will book you and give you a good paying gig and take care of you, and like Hico has been like that for me, and like some of the you know, even some stuff you've booked me for, like the Fort Worth stuff and all that. Yeah. And so I love it, you know, and I'm very close friends with Jacob Furr, who I know you know is one of my
he's friends. The one who suggested I book you. I think was, you know, I was booking him for a few things, and I could call him in a pinch.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, someone dropped out. Someone's sick. Can you know, show up tonight? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No problem.
And just
nothing.
A masterful musician.
I love him.
Unbelievable songwriter.
Yeah. Great dude.
Great guy. One of my dear friends. And him, and then, you know, I met him through Matt Tedder, who I
also love.
Yeah. Who's just, in my opinion, one of the best guitar players
on
the planet. Yeah. I would listen to him play.
Yeah.
Every single day, you
Same.
know. And then, you know, I've gotten to know, you know, folks like Simon Flory and Morris. I'm actually hanging out with Morris. We're going to do a little recording on Saturday. And,
okay.
So I have a lot of affinity for Fort Worth.
Same. Yeah.
I really enjoy it. And we've had a really good, we've talked a lot about me and Clint Kirby, who plays drums with all those guys. We're talking about like, cause he's actually from Oklahoma.
Okay. I don't know that about him.
Yeah. He's from Norman, I think. We talked about like, this is really fun. Like they've taken me in down here, and like me and Tedder have done the Merc and the Colony a couple times. We're doing it again in April together. Me and Jacob and Simon played in Tulsa on Sunday together, and then we kind of all swap back and forth. And it's very kindred. And I think to me, like that is, if that's not the reasons you get into like if that's not what keeps you doing music, then I don't know. You know, that is just as important. Some of those connections are just important as playing the instrument in some ways.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Really. That's really cool. Well, so then like what's next? What do you, this record, if it's, you put it out and then just kind of continue down this path, or do you have like further like aspirations for like building this thing and
Not really, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, I just wanted to make a living and play the guitar. It's all I ever wanted to do. Even when I didn't know how to play the guitar well, it's all I ever wanted to do, you know? And I joke with friends, and it's part true, but like being able to do this for a living affords me the opportunity to have hours a day to play the guitar, to learn things that I don't know what I'll ever do with them. I just want to know them. You know, I don't know that I'll ever even be able to execute some of this Jerry Reed stuff that I want to do cleanly, but I'll still be sitting there trying to figure it out. And it kind of affords me that luxury to do that stuff, you know? And yeah, I love what I do. And I do think that, you know, for the type of music I play, to be making a living like I do and playing as many places I play, like that's, I feel fortunate beyond words, to be honest with you. And so if something else happened, great. I'm going to keep trying to get better and keep putting stuff out there. But if life just stayed like it was, there'd be no complaints from me whatsoever. Yeah.
Man. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot to end.
Cool, man.
Awesome. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah. Pleasure, Grady. Thanks, man.
Yeah.